Hello, my name is Mitchell Gavecci, and for this project I'm going to be talking about the connection between sleep and diabetes. So first question is, what is diabetes? Diabetes is a chronic health condition that affects how your body turns food into energy. Most of what we eat is broken down into glucose and then released into your bloodstream, signaling your pancreas to release the hormone insulin. Now, insulin acts like a key to let blood sugar into your body's cells and use it for energy. If you have diabetes, your blood either doesn't make enough insulin, or you can't use the insulin it already makes, or it just has a hard time being efficient. And this is the difference between type 1 and type 2 diabetes. And when there isn't enough insulin or the cells stop responding to insulin, too much blood sugar tends to accumulate in your bloodstream. Over time, the high amounts of blood sugar can cause serious health problems such as heart disease, vision loss, and even kidney disease. So you heard me mention the differences between type 1 and type 2, but let's go more into that. As you can see from this graph, type 1 and type 2 diabetes has different incidence rates when dealing with different races and ethnicities. Type 1 is usually diagnosed in children, teens, and young adults, but it can develop at any time. Because of an autoimmune reaction that happens in the body, the pancreas decides not to make enough insulin, or makes very little. With little to no insulin, blood sugar is unable to enter the cells, therefore building up in the bloodstream. The high sugar accumulation contributes to symptom progression and other complications. Also, type 1 diabetes is a lot less common than type 2. About 5% of the people with diabetes have type 1. Currently, no one knows how to prevent type 1 diabetes, but it can be managed by following your doctor's recommendations for living a healthy lifestyle, controlling your blood sugar, getting regular health checkups, and getting diabetes self-management education. Now, type 2 is when the insulin in your body becomes ineffective and can't keep the blood sugar levels can't keep the blood sugar at normal levels. The cells in your body develop insulin resistance, making your pancreas create more insulin to try and get the cells to respond. This, in turn, actually makes the cells a little less responsive to the insulin. Eventually, the pancreas becomes exhausted and the blood sugar rises. Type 2 develops over many years and is usually diagnosed in adults older than 18. It can be managed by the patient with support from a healthcare provider. Healthy eating, being active, prescription insulin, and other injectable medications help control blood sugar levels and avoid further complication. But if you're taking prescribed medication, the patient still needs to become active and adhere to a healthier diet. Type 2 diabetes can go on for a long time without being noticed. Because symptoms are hard to spot, it's important to know the risk factors. There's also another type of diabetes that isn't listed here, and it's called gestational diabetes, which develops in pregnant women who have never had diabetes and usually only have diabetes during pregnancy. If an individual has gestational diabetes, the baby could be at higher risk for health problems. This type of diabetes usually goes away after the baby is born, but increases your risk for type 2 diabetes later on in life. Your baby is more likely to have obesity as a child or teen and is more likely to develop type 2 diabetes later in life also. So, how prevalent is diabetes in the United States? Well, over 30 million individuals in the United States have been diagnosed with diabetes. That's 9.4% of the American population. Also, even more than that is 84 individuals have been diagnosed with pre-diabetes. And an ongoing 1.5 million new cases are diagnosed every year. As you can see from the map I provided, diabetes prevalence seems to be occurring in these southern states and along the eastern border. So studies show that these rates of diabetes vary by ethnic background and also increase with age. I provided two of these graphs to show the differences between ethnicities and age when it comes to prevalence of diabetes and risk for diabetes. According to the CDC, the highest ethnic group that is impacted by diabetes are American Indians and Alaskan Natives. and this comes up to 5.1% of the population that are diagnosed with diabetes are this genetic background. Second comes non-black or non-Hispanic blacks at 12.7%. Third, Hispanics at 12.1%. Asian Americans at 8%. Whites at 7.4%. So it does seem that the white ethnic background is the least affected by this condition. And you can see there's actually little differences between the percentages of women and men that have contracted the disease. They're fairly close in percentages. Second would be the age range, and you can see from ages from 18 to 44, there's very little diagnosis of diabetes, and usually it's going to be pre-diabetes conditions and the beginning stages of type 2. From ages 45 to 64, you have a slight increase in individuals diagnosed with diabetes at 17%. And from ages 65 or older, 25% of those individuals have been diagnosed with diabetes. 5% of that 30 million are presumed to have diabetes type 1. Diabetes prevalence has also varied significantly by education. Among U.S. adults with less than a high school education, 12.6% of those individuals had diabetes. Among those with a high school education, 9.5% of them were diagnosed with diabetes. And among those individuals with a education that is higher than high school, only about 7.2% contracted diabetes. So it seems like your risk or prevalence of diabetes seems to go down with increase of education. So we were talking about those risk factors that lead up to diabetes.